Is black, Christian / Muslim an oxymoron? This will take us to YouTube. You see the person on the thumbnail. That's Joshua Wapongo. Let's hear what Joshua has to say. Let me make sure the volume is up.
And Islam, by nature, they are bullies of African culture. It is expressed in their intolerance of other people who believe differently from who they are. So here's a simple example. If a Muslim walks into this village, the first object is to build a mosque and make everyone in that village a Muslim. It changes your timetable of waking up. Wake up at 5, changes your fashion, changes the way you bury your loved ones. Now you must do everything according to Islamic law. The same thing is true with Christianity. Christianity walks into a space, first thing they want to do, as a Zulu, as a Xhosa, you take off your shirt and put on your beautiful beads, and you walk up to church. Christianity will look at you, because apparently you must become European first before you can become Christian. In order for God to accept you, He cannot accept you in your authenticity. He needs first to take you through the culture of the dominant culture, which is the colonial culture, before you can actually become an acceptable Christian. Christianity and Islam, by nature, they are bullies of African culture. It is expressed in their intolerance of other people who believe differently from who they are. So here's a simple example. If a Muslim walks into this village, the first object is to build a mosque and make everyone in that village a Muslim. It changes your timetable of waking up. Wake up at 5, changes your fashion, changes the way you bury your loved ones. Now you must do everything according to Islamic law. The same thing is true with Christianity. Christianity walks into a space, first thing they want to do, as a Zulu, as a Xhosa, you take off your shirt and put on your beautiful beads, and you walk up to church. Christianity will look at you, because apparently you must become European first before you can become Christian. In order for God to accept you, He cannot accept you in your authenticity. He needs first to take you through the culture of the dominant culture, which is the colonial culture, before you can actually become an acceptable Christian.
So before I throw it to the panelists, I'm always curious to see what some of the YouTube comments are on videos like these. Right here, someone says, "I was always interested in African traditional religion, and maybe mysteries in it, but it's rare now as organized religions are replacing the native beliefs." Someone else says, "Sir, I'm Indian of the Hindu faith, and I totally agree with you. We people of India never converted any race, but others came to our country and converted our people. Westerners also tend to ignore us when they mention Christianity, as if to say they are superior to us. I think the best way is to be true to ourselves and practice our religion and culture and not be influenced by others. God is there and listening if we pray to Him sincerely from whatever faith. Thanks for the true love for Africa." So I'm pleasantly surprised that at least a handful of these 5,000 comments here are actually speaking in favor of what Joshua is saying. And he's not lying. I mean, let's be honest about it. We hear things like, mathematics or biology was invented by the Arabs, but that's not really true. We know that it was black folks who created a lot of these inventions, but they were Arabized and Islamicized Africans. When you do something for Africa and you carry an Arab name, history will always, at some point later on, they'll always attribute your works to someone else, to these Arab people. Same thing with the Christians as well. It's a shame that we seek out Christian names for our children. We've talked about this on Shoot the Breeze before. But the idea that so many of our people there's people being born right now given the name Walter or some shit like that. Like, it's a shame. And he's absolutely right. This is why we got to get back to our African spiritual systems, because that's culture. With that system, you start to name your children and start to move, dress the way we would dress. But right now, we look kind of like clowns because we're playing dress up in another man's culture. But with that said, man, let me throw it to the panel. I'm gonna start with Real Black John on this one. Real Black John would say,
You know, he makes the point about how when you have Islam and Christianity coming through, they want to change everything until, you know what I'm saying, the only way to get to heaven, get to God is through, you know what I'm saying, the right way, the right steps, the right teachings, the right behaviors. It just made me think, like, when I was 8, I stopped going to church. Like, I told the person, like, I don't have the right shoes, and they're like, it doesn't matter what kind of shoes that you have. I still didn't go. I'm glad that I had wherewithal, just knowing that it wasn't fun. It wasn't it was just the mystery of it all and not really knowing what, and just seeing everything was just a script, and just like going through, you know, it's just a script, and it's just like, you know, you get older and it's just like, okay, there's all this book, there's so many Sundays, they're only going to teach out, you know, a verse, maybe 2 or 3, let's say, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. So you have to be in church forever to get all the verses, and yet and still people repeat, you know what I'm saying, the verses. I don't know anything about Islam. I don't give any sway. I can't. Like, I know too much. I can't do it. It's fool's gold, man. From to an African, it's fool's gold. I don't try to, like, you know, there's no meat to chew out of it, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? It's just like people say chew the meat, spit out the bones. I would just rather not have anything to eat. Thank you, type. You know what I'm saying? That's just my attitude. I don't want to be force fed it, but it's just, I just don't. I can't do it. It's too it's not suited to our character and our environment. It's just not even everything, you know. Even in the Bible, it's like people talk about lamb. I don't eat lamb. I don't eat goat. You know what I'm saying? I eat beef. You know what I'm saying? Beef is African. I see Africans with cattle, and that's something that looks like I want to eat. I was reading something, I think Johnny Henry Clark was talking about what the ancient Ethiopians ate was roast beef. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I can dig beef. I can't do no goat, no frog. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the Africans have all them animals. Most of them have enough sense to eat beef. You know what I'm saying? You'll be okay. You know what I'm saying? All this, like I said, I'm just, my whole point is just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I know better. Christianity, I know that in the Bible is stuff stolen from Africa. I know that. If I get frisky, I kind of like whip around with it, but I don't really even like, I don't resort to it. I don't need it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not mad because, like, I got a deeply religious family. Don't get me wrong. It's like I got ministers, all kinds of people in my family. But it's like I know different, and I think it's better. I would try to, like, try to, like, find that, find the Africa in the Bible is the few little pieces of it that's in there. You know what I'm saying? And, that's all I do, and I keep it pushing to more like relevant, natural stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm done. I'm gonna pass the mic.
appreciate that, RBG. By the way, Cheryl in the chat, she's out there. She says greetings to everyone. Cheryl says it's a cultural contradiction for sure. Trigger says this is also, so he says this is also always an interesting topic because many make the argument that Abrahamic practices won't be what they are without Africa. That's a very interesting statement as well. Let me go to Buana next. Buana, what say you?
Boy, the religious conversations be killing me sometimes. But I don't. Here's where I am with this. I don't personally think, and the brother was right in what he said. It was very true in what he said. But I don't personally think that people join those two religions based off of color or culture. I think they join them religions based off of ideology. and faith and all these other kinds of ideas. I don't think they join that. So I wouldn't call it an oxymoron because you have people who actually are true practitioners. I think that John Henry Clark say black people are the only people who outpoke the Pope and out Muhammad. And I think that when you look at these particular faiths and ideas, it's how it's being used. And I think that that is where the contradictions or the differences lie. I think that the Christianity, by the people who control Christianity, especially in Rome, they use the religion they use religion as a political thing in terms of gaining power. And the same as the Muslims too. But I think that adherents, the followers of the faith, they practice the faith itself or the ideas behind the faith. They don't necessarily look at the politics behind it. So I wouldn't consider a black Christian to be an oxymoron. And also, you have to consider, there are some people in the West whose cultures have been interfered with. So when you confuse about a culture, there'll be someone to fill that void in terms of giving you a cultural perspective of Christianity or Islam, especially when you aren't really 100% sure what your culture actually is. So I think that I don't consider that to be an oxymoron. I think that some people in terms of continental Africa latch on to religion based off of the culture that they came from. But what about people who might not be sure about what their cultural perspectives are? Something has to fill in those blanks. And I think that this is where Christianity, especially certain denominations within Christianity itself, comes in to fill those voids and blanks. And Islam as well. Because there is a culture that comes with Islam and Christianity. And where black people may be confused or may have lost or their culture may have been interfered with, they fill that void. In Africa, it's the same thing because colonialism happened there as well. But they still, the Christians I have found in Africa, they still latch on to cultural practices and infuse that into the Christianity. So it almost become like a syncretism. Even in Islam, you see a lot of African culture synchronizing with Islam, whereas or originally practiced in Saudi Arabia may be completely different than how it's practiced in Senegal, because you have their own cultural influences there. So I don't necessarily know that is oxymoron. I wouldn't call it oxymoron. I just say that to this particular gentleman's point who's talking in this video, the Christians and the Islamicists are bullies because Africa has many different religions. We didn't never have a problem with religion. It's just when one religion comes in the territory and say, we take it over, all your religions are null and void. I think that that's where the problem actually comes in. But just to be brief, I'll leave it.
I appreciate that, Buana, but I do disagree. I think when you hear Christianity, that's a European culture. That's a European religious culture. When you hear the term Islam, that's an Arabic religious culture. When you hear Black or African, yeah, that's supposed to be tied to an African culture. So to put Black or African in front of or behind Christianity and Islam, I think that is an oxymoron. I think that's an oxymoron because that's not our culture. Why are we associated with it? Trigger, you keep asking that question.
I want to answer that, Kuku. I want to answer that.
Hold on, real quick. Trigger, you keep asking that question. I'm gonna go to that topic next, so just hold tight. We were getting to that topic. You got to keep asking that question. Buana, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would ask you a question back. Okay, so we all know, people on this panel know that Christianity came from Osiris, Isis, and Horus. This is where the concept comes from. So yes, we are the Christianity we practice today has been perverted from African culture. So what would you say to that? What would you say to that, Kuku?
I don't know what Koku would say to that, but I would say that's a lot of cope, if you ask me.
What you say, Black Seal? Say it again. Say it again. So Black Seal, say it again. Say it
It's
again, Black Seal.
coping. It's a coping mechanism.
Coping. Coping. Okay. Explain it a little bit for me, please, so I can understand.
All right, let me tell you what I mean by that. Right. Sometimes, man, we to to be able to cope with certain things, we have to lie to ourselves, right? Like, you know, just speaking to the fellas out there, you know, when you text a girl and she don't text you back, you tell yourself, "Oh, she's probably busy," knowing damn well she got her phone in her hand all the time. That girl ain't busy. She's with another dude. But you tell yourself she's busy. Cope. To cope with stuff, right? So I'm sorry for my analogy,
That's
but
good. That's good. That's good.
but I say that because what the brother talked about was very, very real. I grew up, real black gentleman said he stopped going to church at 8. In my mom's house, there was no fucking way I was not going to church at 8 years old. Right? My mom and my stepdad had
Same here.
3 rules, okay? Keep your room clean, go to school, get good grades, go to church. That was the 3 rules they had. When I was 20, I was a grown man. Okay. I didn't have any kids yet, but I was, I just graduated high school. I graduated high school. I was working, going to college. I stayed out all night, went to the club, came home 4 o'clock in the morning. At 8:30, and knock on my door. Get up, let's go to church. All right. I was grown, okay? There was no way that my mom and my stepdad was gonna let me just say I'm not going to church. You gonna go to church. That's in discussion. So growing up, I didn't have an option but as I've gotten older, I've come to understand a few things, right? Most people don't associate Christianity or Islam or any of those other religions with any of the historical things. There's no history behind it, right? If you can't ask the average black person, average black Christian, about the Emperor Constantine, the Council of Nicaea, Martin Luther, and the 95 Thesis, the Apocrypha. They don't know any of that. All they know, their bare basic understanding of it is Jesus died for my sins. My grandma went to church. My dad and daddy went to church. I'm going to church. Because the idea is that they want to create a moral guideline, a moral fabric, right? Same thing with Islam, right? Most people don't know about the Arabs castrating the black men so they could turn them into eunuchs, and the trans-Saharan slave trade. They don't know that. All they know is that when they were in jail, only people who treated them like they were human beings was the Muslims, right? That's what they know. And I think that when we have these conversations, what really got me about this prompt was not so much about the religion, but the desire. When you convert to these religions, right? You have, at your cultural core, you have to change yourself. And everybody keeps saying Christianity is a European religion. Christianity did not originate in Europe. Christianity originated in Western Asia, Palestine, Judea, what the Romans called it. It is not by nature a European religion. In fact, there were many African nations, such as Ethiopia, that had adopted Christianity before the Europeans did. There were Christians in Africa before there were Christians in Europe. But African Christianity did not force people to change who they are. You could still be African and still be Christian, but European Christian, that particular vein of Christianity, forced you to not only adopt their religion, but you had to kill everything in you that belonged to you before you were Christian, right? So we talks about, first thing they want to do is build a mosque, right? You can't wear your beads anymore. You can't wear your hair, right? No, that is not saying. That's funny. And people were not white people. They were not European back then. They're not European now, but not white people. Sorry. Overall, you know, the way that Christianity has been shaped to fit the European worldview. When it was in Africa first, this is not me saying you should be Christian because it was in Africa first. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm simply saying that there's something about the way the European perceives the world, that he was able to make the religion conform to him instead of him conforming to the religion, right? He made the religion fit his worldview. And then when he put it on others, other people had to adopt his version of Christianity. It wasn't enough. There were, because there's nothing in the religion that says you got to wear you can't be Zulu, or you have to, you know, get rid of your culture to accept Christianity. But yet, when the European brought Christianity to Africa, they had to force these people to conform to their way of life. Even whenever the European goes to other places, like we came to North America, when he converted those Native Americans, they couldn't be Christian and still wear their traditional Native clothes. They couldn't wear their breech. They had to, you know, wear the white man's clothing. They had to farm like the Europeans farmed. You know, they had to build their houses in a European style just to accept the religion. So I guess to me, it just goes to me more so the European mindset, how it shaped the religion to become a weapon almost. Everything they do weaponizes. It turns into a weapon against other people, be it Christianity, Islam, medicine, economics, everything within their hands is a weapon. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yeah. What I'm saying though on Black Steel is the white man has done that. The white man has done that with Christianity. But the white man, you see, the thing is, the white man is, I don't think some European man is smart sometimes. I don't think he is smart, you know, and unknowingly, what he is, the white man is the king of the rebrand. He's the king of the rebrand, not understanding what he's doing and why he's doing it. And he's doing it for a useful purpose because it has been effective. The white man has effectively made the savior of the world himself. And that's fine. But what I am saying is, underneath the concept and ideas of Christianity is what? African spirituality. And what the white man has done is replace that with himself. And when you talk about Christianity, as we talked last week, they say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? That conceptual idea was in the minds of the African thousands of years before he came up with this idea of Christianity. You know, I'm saying that he got that from somewhere. And for thousands of years, when we look at African spirituality, is always represented with that same paradigm: the man, the woman, and child. The man, the woman, and child. So when you fast forward that to all the changes that happen in terms of humanity, Black people going from one continent to the next, or we still had that conceptual idea: man, woman, and child. We didn't say man, woman, and donkey. We didn't say chicken, egg, and frogs. You know, we had man, woman, and child. But it just so happens that, and I understand we was forced to latch onto this idea of Christianity, but underneath that paradigm, that African conceptual idea is still there: man, woman, and child. We call it something different back then, and now we call it Jesus, the Father in heaven, and the Holy Ghost in 2025. But I'm saying that the conceptual idea is still there, and I believe, and I could be wrong, in the minds of many people, many African people, and I think that, and you are right. The reasons why we latch on to it on a conscious level is we was forced to, but I think on a subconscious level, that paradigm that we still had inside our minds is man, woman, and child is still there. I think that that's the reason why it's so popular. I don't know. I could be wrong in saying that, but that's what That's what my logical brain is telling me, and I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, but I think you're wrong because let me ask you: do you think the European Christian, it's either consciously or subconsciously thinks that their religion and religious culture has an African undertone?
No, I don't think that. What I think is they latch on
We
to a
think
conceptual like what I think is they latch on to a conceptual idea they did not understand. They didn't understand that where the people who where the Rome was pushing, they got that from somewhere. They just didn't make that up, but they got that from somewhere, and they hold it on to themselves because at the center of their belief system, they control and run the universe. You see this nice European face picture of Jesus Christ, yeah, and the Father with the white beard and stuff like that. They put him at the center himself, not understanding, that they got that from somewhere, but it's been advantageous to themselves, and I can't fault them for that either. You know, because if I created the world, the world would look like me. I mean, duh, the world would look like me. So I think that they latch on to a conceptual idea that they did not understand. They just didn't understand it. But it was advantageous to them to carry that idea. Look how beneficial it has been. Look how beneficial.
Yeah, so I'm going to move on to the next panelist, but quickly I'll say, yeah, look how beneficial it's been for them, and look how detrimental it's been for us. Why would we follow something that takes us nowhere? Like John Henry, you guys mentioned Dr. John Henry Clark a couple times tonight. One of the most chilling things I heard from him when I was younger was, if the slave and the slave master are praying to the same God, whose prayers are being answered? And to me, that means that I don't need to be praying to the same God as these folks. Why not me go back to my our original systems of worship? This Christianity thing that you guys keep saying comes out of Africa, it comes out of one part of Africa. But what were we doing in West Africa and Central Africa before they pulled us up out of there? By the way, pulled us up out of there with the go ahead from the Pope. By the way, the highest position in Christianity on the East Coast, where Jacadero folks is from. The Arabs did their thing, exalting an Arab dude who was married to like a 9-year-old or something like that at one point. So why should we follow this stuff? Why are we changing our names? Right? That's the critical thing for me, because when I studied science and I look back and I see that, wait a minute, some of the original architects of science are really black folks, but they have an Arab name. That's problematic to me. But with that said, let's throw it to.
Oh, no, Coco, don't go, man. Don't go, man. Don't go yet, because you're on a sweet point right now. You're making a sweet point. Just give me 2 seconds, because I'll add to you. So if you say that, Coco, that what is the purpose of doing that? And see, the African spiritists can get vexed at me right now. They can get very mad at me, because the Africans in the West pray to Oludumare. When they was on them ships, they prayed to Bondiu. They prayed to all other African gods to rescue them out of that particular situation. Did that actually happen? So if you say that it hasn't been advantageous to pray to Jesus, I could use the same logical argument when the African slaves was praying to the bottom of them ships to all those African gods to rescue them out of that situation. What's the purpose of that too?
I can answer that. The difference is you're talking about first generation Africans, right? After that, you think the children they were having in North America, Central America, South America, and in the Caribbean were still praying to those orishas, to those gods? No, but that's more of a spiritual type question. But for the most time that we've been in the New World, we've been praying to either Muslim, to Allah, or Jesus, and it hasn't been African gods or orishas or deities. For the most part, we've been here in the Americas is Islam and Christianity. So that would be my answer to that.
That's Kofi, by the way. And I know Buana wants to add something. Buana, hold that thought. Let me get through the panelists and we can have a free-for-all conversation at the end. But let me go to Jacadero. Jacadero, what say you?
This is all just pretty fucking stupid. It's all just pretty fucking stupid. You know, whether it's whether it's an oxymoron, it's stupid because it shouldn't exist for us. It shouldn't. You know, we have our own things. We have our own things. Wasn't it just if it wasn't this year, then it was last year. Didn't a group of Hebrew Israelites go to Kenya, my country, Kenya, and try to tell my fellow countrymen that, hey, the Christ that you guys worship, he doesn't look like the way that you guys think. It's actually, he looked closer to you guys, and they were upset. You know, whether or not they were right or wrong, just the fact that they were like, no. He looked like Joe Biden's son. He looked like Hunter Biden without the coke. You know, he looked like Jared Leto. He looked like, no, he don't look like me. So it's pretty fucking stupid. And then even like I love the names things, because when we lose that, you know, like, how can I explain this? The naming process pre-colonial Africa, you know, majority of the time it was pretty much a consensus of the same thing. And it was either you're named after an ancestor, so like an aunt, uncle, a grandfather, grandmother, something like that, or what was going on during the day, the season, or in social, political. So like somebody could be named like, hey, I named you War, you know, not in that sense, but like, hey, it's because you were born during the time that we have war. Or I named you Paper because when you were born, that's when me and your mom graduated college, you know, something like that. So it's crucial. So when like now we're adopting, especially in East Africa, you know, it's often that kids are named some of the most biblical names, man. These old Testament Barnabas. I've said this on the show before. I know 3 Barnabas, and they're all Kenyan. Barnabas. I've never met an African American Barnabas. Never. I've never met a West African Barnabas in my life, but I know 3 Kenyans named Barnabas. Yeah, and that's
Are they 500 years old? Because that is an old name.
So one of the
they got a brother named Methuselah.
one of the churches that are dominant of the church denominations that are dominant in West Kenya, Nyanza and Kisiland and Luyaland is SDA, Seventh-day Adventists. And Seventh-day Adventists, I think they rely heavy on the Old Testament. And so I think that's where it comes from, because it's often that you ask somebody like with a name like Enoch. Like I've never met an African American Enoch, but I know over double-digit number of Kenyan Enochs. But I've never met a black person in America named Enoch. But I'm getting too far away. The naming process is crucial, but this happens because we've accepted these things. But why have we accepted these things? You know, there's a good point to this, people that are listening. There's a good way out of this. You know, one of the things that Christianity and Islam do really, really well in Africa, and maybe even the Caribbean, maybe Botswana can attest to this, is they put on charity. Man, they put on charity. They put on a mean charity, man. Back to school. Oh, we got school supplies for your kids. Don't you worry. Don't you even think about working overtime. We got you. Food pantries. Food pantries are often in churches and masjids. I know. I was a part of a food pantry at a masjid before. I spearheaded one. Man, you ask a congregation, hey, go ahead. Yo, when you're getting some groceries, go ahead and add a little more. When you're getting that loaf of bread, go ahead and add another Sara Lee loaf to your basket. Now, when you getting that Country Time lemonade, go ahead and add another batch of Country Time lemonade, because we're going to go ahead and we're going to put on a food pantry this Friday after Juma prayers. You know, I've been to black churches. Man, black churches be putting on. You have issues with like your utility bills, If you get close enough to a pastor, and now, ladies, don't get any wrong ideas now. Come on, let's slow down. Don't get freaky now. But you get close enough on a social level to a pastor, bro, they could pay your bill. He could say, hey, let me talk to the board and see, and you know what, we'll get you right. But it's oftentimes that you don't hear about voodoo and any of our other spiritual systems where their place of worship is, where they're putting on charity. You know, people, I think, this is my opinion, I think that people much less like the religion because, oh, I like being a Christian, if it's not just because of the benefits. It's the benefits that keep people going, because it's usually the benefits that families as well as the kids, usually when you win the kids over, the parents are like, you know what? You're not so bad. This is not so bad. This is not so terrible. Man, no, man, all that stuff about the Pope raping kids, the Catholic Church raping kids, molesting kids. You know what? I don't believe that. I'm going to go ahead and, we're going to name you Israel. Now, all the, stories about the prophet, marrying a nine-year-old girl. I ain't going to buy that, man. You know what? The Muslims, they do just fine, man. When Ramadan comes on, man, I'm well fed. Once it comes time to break my fast, shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm well fed, and plus I got this all white robe that I get to wear with no underwear, and I just let my balls hang. I know I'm getting off topic here, but charity is one thing that our African spiritual systems need to take heed of. And I know that that's something that we can do. There's at least 2 different African satellite settlements here in the United States. One of them in South Carolina, I think it's called the Oyuntunji Empire, Oyuntunji Village in South Carolina, somewhere in South Carolina. And then there's like a Igbo village, I think in Virginia. And I would assume that no churches and masjids exist in those places. Just what I've seen off of YouTube and other social media platforms. So, if you can just convince and put out the message, like, you know what, hey, not only can you convert, and Afro Nation says Oyotunji. Shout out to Afro Nation. What's up, man? If you can go ahead and get out the message that we are also providing charity, it's one step closer. The other thing, man, get our individuals in political power. Oni Tase, one time on this show, said, as much as you see white boys on National Geographic or YouTube travel channels, and they'll go to Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and they'll become Buddhists. Now I pray to the Buddha. If those white boys get in political power, all of a sudden, hey, they're tongue kissing that Western Wall in Israel, right? They're bathing in the Jordan River to get baptized, right? They go ahead and giving their tithes because they know better, because they know better. So it behooves us to think that, okay, people are just gonna drop these religions. Sure, they could, but it's what is the benefit? And these things can be tangible things. Again, the charity thing, and then when you get political power, shit, you make moves, man. One of the political power examples that we have here, I talked about the Black Agenda Alliance here in Omaha, our Black militant group that puts on a summer camp to teach young little black boys and little black girls how to shoot guns out in the target range. One of the chairmen for the Black Agenda Alliance is our senator, Terrell McKinney. So we putting the foot up the ass of our enemies, and these are the things that you can slowly implement. Again, I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but it's not as bleak as what we like to think. These things can change, but again, it has to start. Again, when you start providing charity and then you have political power, then people will be inclined to say, you know what? Hey, instead of naming my kid, like Koku said, Walter, we're going to go ahead and name him Wale. Oluwale, man. Shout out to the great ancestor, Malcolm X.
Good suggestions there, Jack Adair. I didn't get to introduce him properly earlier, so let me throw it to him now. Kofi, the Black critic, or Kofi the Heathen, has joined us tonight. Kofi, how are you?
I'm doing good this week. How are you guys doing? Glad to hear everyone's doing good. Good.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, what Jacadero said is absolutely right. I mean, I'm pretty sure at one time or another we all seen Dr. Umar or whatever. And the first time I saw Dr. Umar or whatever, we were talking about something like this. And he pretty much said what Jacadero said. Yeah, all that stuff that, you know, it's a tool of colonialism, this, that, and the other about Christianity. But guess what? When you hungry, where you going? You going to a food pantry. You know what I'm saying? You need a place to lay your head. They probably got a cot for you somewhere over there. They're doing work in the community that Pan-Africans are not doing. So it is something that it has a utility that is needed in that regard. And again, it's pretty much doing the work according to what the doctrine says, whatever version you believe in it of. But it is doing the work that the doctrine is saying. But at the same time, they are there to pretty much be at the head of your spiritual wheel. What happens? So, two things I'm going to answer. So is Black Christianity and Islam an oxymoron? Yes, it is. The reason why I'm saying yes, it is you look at the history of it. For those who don't know, Christianity is older than Islam, right? And what are the fundamental differences? So the fundamental differences is that it's not to do with the Old Testament. They believe in Moses, Adam, Abraham, all the monarchs. They believe in the Old Testament. What you guys have to understand is that the New Testament to the Hebrew Bible for Christians will just be the New Testament. The New Testament for Muslims will just be the Quran, right? And what's the fundamental difference? Oh, Jesus is a prophet of God. Well, Christians say no, he is the Son of God. So those are the two things. I mean, come on, that's why they're fighting. That's why Christians and Muslims fight, even in this country. Why they demonize Muslims? That's the only fundamental thing that they disagree. So when you point a finger at Muslims, oh look, they're so misogynistic. Oh, there's things in the Bible that's very misogynistic, because you see a Muslim woman, she's wearing a burqa and a hijab, right? But what's a nun? A nun has to do the same thing, more or less. Have to dress a certain way and cover yourself, and you have to mind your chastity, right? So those are the fundamentals. So a Christian and a Muslim aren't the same thing, obviously, because one is called a Christian, one is called a Muslim. The fact that they have two different names means that they are different, but their faith is oxymoronic in a way, but they agree on some of the things. But that's the cornerstone of the things that they disagree. I also want to address the fact that people keep saying that Christianity is a Black religion. It's just fucking not. It's not. And as someone who grew up in the church, was very religious, always tell me, my mother used to tell me, oh, read the Lord's Prayer. Oh, read this in Psalms. Read this, read that. The Bible is supposed to be your rock. It's supposed to be, you're in trouble, you're feeling on pressures of the world or whatever. Read your Bible. The thing that Christians don't understand is that I'm reading the fucking Bible, so I can see the bullshit in it with a clear mind. If I'm reading it with an indoctrinated mind, then I'm going to believe everything that it says. And I tell people this thing. So if the problem with us being indoctrinated from birth, when we're like a year old, we're getting Christian, which is an African thing. It's not a Christian thing. It's not a Hebrew thing. They were doing that in Kemet. Thousands of years before there was a Hebrew. So you getting, even though Christianity, the Hebrew faith and Islam call those things pagans and heathens, right? They're pagans and heathens, right? Bad, they're bad. But you're taking their religious practices, right? You're taking their religious practices. But those things, Islam and Christianity is not a Black African religion. if it's but I'm going to go to the juggler. As people in the diaspora, as well as in Africa, you are telling me you're supposed to look at the ways of Christ, right? Now, if anyone know anything about Jesus, Jesus is a Jew, right? Jesus is a Jew. The people that made up Christianity is white people, or the letters of Paul, which was canonized. The letters of Paul is not supposed to be gospel. It's supposed to be the letters of Paul. So based upon the letters of Paul, that's how they came up with Christianity, along with the Creed of Nicaea, and to figure out what Jesus' divinity is. But Christianity is made up. So Jesus is a Jew. So when Jesus went to turn up the tables and he's causing a ruckus in the synagogue, they say, "Who are you? Are you here to change the law?" Jesus is like, "No, I have not come to change the law. I have come to fulfill it," because Jesus is a Jew. Christians are supposed to be following Jewish law. So we're following Jewish law, right? Still going for the juggler here. Where in the Bible, black people, my continental Africans, my diasporan Africans that went through the transatlantic slave trade, show me where in the Bible where it speaks against slavery. I can show you places in the Bible where it says how to treat a slave. I can show you in Corinthians it says obey your earthly masters as you do obey Jesus. What the fuck are we talking about? It's a black fucking religion. Are you fucking out your mind? Like, if you know the scriptures. I'm not trying to berate anybody, but it kind of gets me upset because we don't read our Bible. You know what I'm saying? If you're a Christian or not. If you're just there for information. I'm not a Christian. I used to be a Christian. If someone gives me about, hey man, it says this in the Bible, and it may give me some new information, I'm going to read it anyway. Right? What are we talking about? So wait, the Bible. So Black students said, well, there was Christianity in Ethiopia. Before that, during that time in Ethiopia, it was a part of the Roman Empire. It was a part of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was the first European empire to establish a religion, and that religion was Christianity. Right? So if we're saying that Christianity, we're going to forget about Islam, because Islam, we all know Islam is freaking worse than Christianity. A Muslim is worse than a Christian. Look at North Africa. There's still slavery going on there. At least I said this many times. At least a white man had enough decency to get the fuck up out of Africa. He may have his little strings, you know what I'm saying, East Africa and West Africa, but at least he's, you know what, let me at least give these Negroes some sovereignty. Fucking Arab is still there. They are still there. So if the Bible, the Torah, the Pentateuch, whatever version you want to go to, is an African religion, what African people is going to talk about slavery in Egypt when there's no slavery in Egypt? But according to the Bible, there's slavery in Egypt, right? There's slavery in Egypt, and we're gonna and since you following Jesus and you want to be Jesus-like, so you're gonna celebrate Passover. You're gonna celebrate Passover, the death of black people. That's a holiday you want to celebrate. But hey, Christianity is a black holiday. It's a black religion. That doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to me once you read once you read the Bible. The Gentiles, you have Gentiles and you got God's chosen people. If you read all of the people in the Bible, if you know the names, when we need the names, all the black people are cursed people. Ham, Canaan, right? People from Mizraim, which is also Egypt. All the classification of groups of people that are black, Ethiopian people, they are the cursed people. They are not the chosen people. What are we talking about, people, that the Christianity in the Bible is a black religion? What are we talking about? What are we talking about? One other thing. Two other things. When I forgot I have to find that chapter again. There's a chapter in I forgot what book it's in. And it's talking about getting blessings from God. And it says a person, I'm obviously not doing. It's talking about you cannot get a blessing if you're Maine or have a flat nose. So it means like if you're disfigured or anything like that, or you have a flat nose. So black people is looking at other black people saying that you're cursed because you got a flat nose. What are we talking about here? I read it. I did it on my channel one time. where it talk about because King Solomon is this wise man and yada yada yada, and the woman wanted two women wanted the baby, so Solomon said cut the baby and have all this dumb shit. Read the Psalms of Solomon. And Negroes like to talk about, Solomon's black. Yeah, he a black man. You know how he black because he's good with all the ladies and everything, and he's wise. Read the Psalms of Solomon. It's about a woman wanted to be Solomon's wife, and she had to apologize for being black because she worked in her father's vineyards because she couldn't maintain her own. And says she's dark like the tents of Kedar. The tents of Kedar is a very dark maroon, burgundy type thing. This whole thing, she's apologizing for being fucking black. What are we talking about, people? The Bible is not a black religion. And I think if Christians were to actually do what the pastor said, is read the Bible with clarity, you would kick that shit like a fucking field goal, like I've done many a time. And I end it right there. I don't mean to keep preaching, but I just had to get this off my chest.
Appreciate that, Kofi. Real quick in the chat, Real Black Gentleman says he knows an Enoch. So this is to Jacadero. Trigger Happy says I know some Ghana Enochs. LOL. Trigger says to Jacadero, I got an article about Christianity versus Messiah too that speaks on this. Europeans manipulates and creates conditions of poverty, then come in as saviors. That's Christianity for you. He says Christianity and Islam implies some type of economic and political benefit. Evangelicals and Mormons are scoring hat tricks in Nigeria with their performance because of their economic backing. Trigger says we need our own business class backing the reconstruction and unification of African spiritual practices. It will be a game changer when African culture returns to a state position. I think this is the last one from Trigger. He says a lot of the times Arab and Indo-European languages took dominance through administrative means, which implies political and economic power. To Kofi's point, Afro-Native World says a lot of former Christians become non-Christians by reading the Bible. Cheryl says she knows an Enoch too. With that said, man, let me throw it to Sister Cheryl this week. Cheryl, how are you this week?
Hey, I'm doing good. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, not a problem. So the question about a black Christian or a black Muslim being what was it? An oxymoron. So not that I disagree, because I understand how it's being used, because an oxymoron means a contradiction. But an oxymoron, I was just like kind of having this discussion with my husband. But an oxymoron, from like what we were just discussing, is like, for example, like a large shrimp or a big shrimp. That's an oxymoron. It's a type of contradiction, but I think a black Christianity is a type, or being a black Muslim is a type of contradiction, but it's not an oxymoron per se. But I do agree that it is a contradiction. And also, with that being said, it's like we as a people, we can't. Like black people always have for a long time. Any black Christian that you talk to, it doesn't matter what type of Christian they are, they always make the argument that, oh, well, Christianity is black because, oh, look at Ethiopia and look at the East and look at that. But just because a religion has been in a country for a long time does not make it a black religion. It's just that it's been there. The word, it tells you where it's from. If you look at the word Christ, it tells you. No words in any African languages, in any of the African countries, have words like Christ. Christ is what is it, a Greek word? Yeah, it's a Greek word. It has other variations. You'll get
It's
different.
Latin.
Is it Latin?
Latin.
I looked it up. It said Greek. They're all related.
Is Greek. Bible is
Yeah,
Greek.
they are related. They have sandcrackers, whatever, wherever they are, whatever. They're all related. Palestine, they're all peoples that are related. Has nothing to do with Africa, and you can even see it. And I think, yeah, you know what I think the problem is when you get to, because people in Africa have the problem too, but I think more when your proximity to white, when you have such a proximity to white people, particularly in the U.S., and you start taking on names like John and Paul and Adonis and Kevin and all of these names, like we don't see generally names as cultural, and we don't understand religion as being cultural. We just think it's this thing that we just do, and all people do it because we're all humans. That's how Westerners see, particularly very much so Black people see religion. When you ask a white person about religion and stuff, they understand it's their culture. It's part of, it's part of who they are. There's Indo-European. Doesn't matter what kind of European they are. They're all Europeans of some sort. Some darker than to others, but they're all the same. So I mean, we don't see names, and I know this because most white people you talk to, you ask them, "Oh, well, why'd your mother name you that?" Like when my parents gave me the name Cheryl Lynn, they weren't thinking, "Oh, we gave her this name because it means this." They just gave me the name because it sounded nice, and that's what a lot of Black people do, even in the Caribbean. Like they just give them names, these European names, because they sound nice. They don't even think of them as European names. We can't even get into that. I think that's the difference between the people, like the way we've been colonized versus the way other people have been colonized. Because like even on the continent, they'll have their indigenous names, but they'll hold in higher regard the Christian name, but they can't differentiate culture, that it's a different, that your name is a part of someone's culture. We don't see names as cultural generally. So I think that's a huge part of our confusion in the whole Christian Muslim world. We're in this humanity mindset, so we don't see names as actually being cultural, but the names tell you. You get the names from the Bible, and even if you have a Judah, even Ezekiel, any names with L on the end, Yah, from Judah, whatever. You see a lot of Black people with those names. Oh, none of that is. It tells you. I mean, but Black people don't connect culture to in language to religion. We just think religion is religion. So that's what it is.
I also want
Thank
to
you,
add
brother.
that Islam means peace. One of the most destructive, wickedest religion in the world. Islam means peace in Arabic. Just want to say that.
So I know Black Seal did speak earlier, but I'm going to check in with Black Seal. Black Seal, is there any last thoughts you want to give here?
The only thing I really could say, because everybody said so much that I agree with, right? Um, the only thing is, and everybody's absolutely correct about the nature of Christianity, right? And I don't believe it's African either. But the thing is, we have a lot of African people who are Christian, who are Muslim. How do we work with those people? Because we're going to have to work with them. We acknowledge we're in a struggle. We understand. We were just talking previously about our freedom fighters, uh, political prisoners. We understand we're in a struggle for our liberation. I believe that if we organize, we can be successful. But that means we're going to have to organize with some Black Christians and Black Muslims. And I think that for the time being, we may have to table this discussion about religion, but understand it is not something that we can just ignore. We can see the reaction just talking about this thing with the dude who got assassinated not too long ago, right? Charlie Kirk, right? We see how a lot of those Black Christians responded to his assassination. And it's not a good sign. If your religion brings you closer to the oppressor, you had people eulogizing this man as a powerful, warrior for Christ or whatever the fuck, right? But he was a racist. So we can see how the religion is detrimental to our long-term survival. But in the meantime, we do have to work with Black Christians. But how is it that we have to interact with these people in a way that's constructive? That's all I got to say.
Can I add one more thing to
Appreciate
build on what Black still said?
Any last thoughts? Yeah. Any last thoughts? You guys go for it. We'll start with Kofi.
Oh yeah,
Who wants to
I have
join in,
some
join
last
after
thoughts after Kofi. Yeah, I have some last thoughts after him.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real quick. Basically, the Black Simply said is absolutely right, but I think it was either I think it could have been Dr. Clark. He says two things. He says leave your religion at the door. Could have been Garvey. He said leave religion at the door. Blackness should be number one, and that should be our commonality and what brings us together, and nothing should encroach on that. But certain people, they're Black, they're Muslim, they're Christian first before anything. And again, Dr. Clark says if you can't use your religion as a tool of power, throw it away in the ash can of history.
I just had one thing to say, and I know everybody knows this, but like, not all. I mean, if it's a question of working with people who are Christian, I mean, we have to do that every day. But also, I don't think everyone who's Christian was on the Charlie Kirk train. I think that's an algorithm. That's a propaganda thing. Because yeah, there are Black people that do that, but those aren't generally the people we have to work with. And even if we do, we just don't bring that stuff up, and we're not really engaging with those type of people anyway. We just engage with the people who are not doing that. And so yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
All right, Buana, you up.
So so I usually don't like to get drawn into these religious discussions because most people know my perspective on it. But what I would say is this: to Kofi's point, no, Christianity is not a African religion, but you cannot deny that Christianity took spiritual concepts from Africa. Cannot deny that. In fact, there are many, even the scriptures you quote, there are some scriptures in the Bible that's quoted almost verbatim from African spiritual texts. That is just not just a fact of life. But let me also say this too, and I want to challenge the African spiritualists and traditionalists because Kofi made another point. He said that the majority of religions that we practice in the Western world has been Christianity. But I would say this: Brazil is the largest represented amount of African people brought from Africa into these Western countries, into Brazil. And many of the cultural practices are African spirit, is African candomblé, Santeria, you name it, from Cuba to voodoo is heavily practiced in Haiti. So if we ask the question in terms of it being of benefit, or how much of benefit is made in terms of the progress of Black people in looking at Christianity, I would challenge the brothers to put the mirror up to ourselves as well. You must do that. So when you look at because voodoo has also been heavily practiced in Haiti, and Santeria and Candomblé has been practiced in Cuba and Brazil. Has that been of benefit to the Black people in those areas? And I ain't trying to be dismissive, but I am challenging the thinking when we talk about this religiosity. No, Christianity has not been of benefit, but when we put the mirror to ourselves and challenge ourselves with that same question, that same exact question, it is a result of that question where you see it's been a great benefit and improvement into the lives of African people in these places, practicing the religion, African spirituality that's been practiced in the West. That's the challenge I have for the brothers who want to go on this African traditionalist vein. And that's the question I would ask. But I'll leave it there just to be brief because I know many people have gone.
Appreciate that, Buana. Shout out to brother Bakari who's in the chat, by the way. If there's no last thoughts here, let's go to Should Reach topic number 3. We can always continue this conversation as we tend to do, because this religious conversation in particular comes up quite a bit, but for good reason. We're going to continue on this religious vein and Should Reach topic number 3. Again, guys, please cut down these topics so that they could fit in one. They can fit in one screen. Should